In a small gray town tucked away between hills and forests, a boy named Ethan lived a life of quiet sadness. At 13, his heart carried the weight of loneliness, and his eyes reflected the sorrow of someone who had seen too much pain for his age. His father had left when he was a toddler, and his mother worked tirelessly to make ends meet, leaving little time for hugs, stories, or shared laughter. Ethan often wandered alone, seeking solace in the woods near his home. The trees were his only companions, their rustling leaves whispering secrets he could never quite understand. Despite their beauty, they couldn't fill the void in his heart. One day, after a particularly difficult evening at school where bullies mocked his worn-out shoes and quiet demeanor, Ethan ran into the woods, tears streaming down his face. He collapsed beneath an ancient oak tree, burying his face in his hands. "Why?" he whispered to the emptiness around him. "Why do I have to feel so alone? Why does life have to be so hard?" As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the forest, Ethan noticed a small, weathered book partially buried beneath the roots of the tree. Curious, he pulled it out and brushed off the dirt. The cover bore the words, "The Promises of God." Inside, the pages were filled with verses and stories about love, hope, and faith. Ethan had never thought much about God. His mother had occasionally mentioned him, but they had never gone to church, and Ethan didn't believe anyone was listening to his prayers, if he even had the courage to pray. But something about the book felt different. It was as if it had been waiting for him. He began reading one page at a time. The words spoke of a love that was unconditional, a presence that never left, and a light that could shine even in the darkest moments. One verse stood out to him. "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Ethan clung to those words like a lifeline. Every evening he would return to the woods, reading a little more of the book and trying to understand the message it carried. Slowly he began to pray, not with fancy words but with an honest heart. "God, if you're real, can you help me? Can you show me you care?" Over time, small but meaningful changes began to unfold. Ethan found himself feeling a strange sense of peace, even when the bullies taunted him. He started noticing the beauty around him, the warmth of the sun, the songs of birds, the kindness of his mother's tired smile. One Sunday, after weeks of reading and praying, Ethan felt a pull to visit the small church in town. He hesitated, unsure if he belonged, but something inside urged him to go. When he stepped through the wooden doors, a kind elderly man greeted him with a smile and said, "Welcome, son. You're always welcome here." The service was simple, but the words of the pastor resonated deeply. He spoke about God's love for each person, no matter their circumstances. Ethan felt as if the message was meant just for him. As the months passed, Ethan's life transformed. He still faced challenges, but his heart was no longer heavy with despair. He made a few friends at church who accepted him for who he was. His mother noticed the change in him and even began reading the book he had found. Ethan's faith grew stronger with each passing day. He discovered that while God didn't erase his problems, he gave him the strength to face them with courage. The sadness that once defined him was replaced by a quiet joy and a newfound purpose, to share the light he had found with others. Years later, Ethan stood before a group of young children in the same church that had welcomed him so long ago. He told them his story, how he had once felt lost but found hope when he met God under the old oak tree. "And you know what?" he said with a smile. "God is always with you too, even when it feels like no one else is. Just talk to him. He listens." The children listened with wide eyes, their hearts touched by the story of a boy who had moved from sadness to happiness, not because life became perfect, but because he discovered the perfect love of God. And so Ethan's journey continued, not just as a boy who found God, but as a man who helped others find him too.